Yep. All right, we're back up. Christie?
I have Chris Clauser, Comptroller. I have before the board statutorily I need to report to you the budget to actual revenue and expenditures for quarter ending September 30. This report's not final. I don't have code corrections done. I don't have accruals done. So we can run through this, but it's going to change.
Any concerns?
Not at this point.
Okay.
And I can do a more thorough review with you when it's done, or we can just do it when I submit you the financials prior to March 30 this year.
That'll be, the financials is fine.
Okay. See, 2 minutes.
Hey,
Looks like 30 seconds.
just a motion to accept that.
Mr. Chair, I'd move that we accept the report as presented.
Have a motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. You're up, Brian.
Okay. So, we have a employee who's currently a part-time and received a job offer for a full-time position. And when we created the new paid time off section of our policy, it says new full-time regular employees will receive 20 hours of paid time off upon hire. And we just need some clarification of new full-time regular employee. Does that include someone that is currently a temporary employee and a part-time employee and they become full-time or not? And so just
To me, they're new. They didn't get anything before. They didn't get any compensation. They don't have any.
Part-time employees get vacation.
Oh, do they?
Not vacation, they get holiday pay though.
Okay.
Well, I don't know why we'd penalize a person who gets a full-time job just because they worked for us part-time, if this is something we're offering for full-time employment.
But that was a tool for recruiting, and my question is, who wrote their check before?
Your question is what?
Who wrote their check before? If they're a part-time employee, Bannock County is writing their check, so they are not a new employee. And so for that one, I say no. But
Well, I'd say it's still a recruitment tool for a full-time employee. In essence, because in this situation, the person that asked them to become a full-time employee did tell them about this, and that was part of the conversation.
So it was promised to them before they were put into full-time?
they
Or
were,
did HR tell them?
they were told.
Told it was part of the becoming full-time.
Because and that was because that's my interpretation of it was, and so that's what they were told.
You know, as I've thought about this, because I heard about it a while back and a few days ago, and my initial reaction was, like Jeff, that they're not a new employee. They're an employee that's changing their work hours. However, really in the larger scheme of things, as I've thought about it, how often does this happen?
And that's the same feeling I had over the weekend, because I was
And
told
so-
about it, and I
so-
read the,
So
Yeah.
if that's going to be the case, every time we have an on-call juvenile worker that goes from on-call to full-time, back to on-call, back to full-time, because those flip-flop a lot. Can we do an
And-
exclusion for them?
I would-
there has to be. I mean, you can't go
Okay,
from full-time to part-time, then back, and expect 20 hours every time. that you do
because
it.
we do have that happen very frequently with those.
But
workers.
outside of that, we don't have very many part-time employees that go full-time.
It's a stepping stone for driver's license. They get in part-time and then when a full-time position opens. But you're right, I mean, there's not that many of those positions.
I had the exact same feeling when I was first informed about it and stuff. Well, they're an employee. That was, but they didn't get compensated. They didn't. And we've talked them in now, and we got a lot of places that we want people to come and participate, and if that's something they can look forward to by becoming full-time, then it fills a slot.
Okay. So
And we don't have to retrain.
I would just ask that we do an exclusion of on-call workers moving, well, I don't know how we do that exclusion, but somehow we need to exclude it if they flip-flop. But we never know that they're gonna flip-flop.
Is that
'cause
the
they-
only special case like that, where you have people going back and forth? I didn't even realize that was
Well,
happening.
it's a one-time deal.
Right.
That's all you do.
Yeah.
It's a one-time deal.
Right.
You get it one time becoming as an employee. You never get it as, if somebody quits us and then comes back, they're not a new employee, in my opinion. We've already invested money in training and everything else. I don't want you, I don't want to give them 20 hours to come back a second or third time. It's a one-time deal, it's an incentive deal, that's the way I would look at it.
A once-in-a-lifetime benefit kind of thing.
But it's not gonna be the first time they go from on-call to full-time either. I mean, if this thing about going back and forth, where those guys aren't getting this.
Oh, like I say, it's a one-time deal. You're
I would have to
thinking,
change the language to say that.
well, that's the only time they're a brand-new employee. You're not a new employee if you become a second or third time.
Well, even going from on-call, like what Jeff's saying, even from going on-call to full-time to part-time, back and forth, I think we need to change the language from a new employee to,
The first time you become a full-time employee.
yeah, something like that. Because then that would address the internal promotions up to include that they get the 20 hours, but you only get it one time. You can't move between categories and achieve 20 hours more than once
Yeah.
in your employment with the county.
So looking at the language right now, it says new full-time regularly employees will receive 20 hours, right? So I think they can make, if they were part-time, even going up to full-time, now they're a new full-time employee. I think there's some good questions here, and we could solve this by just defining what a new full-time regular employee is. We could just add that right under. So this is, if you are a new full-time regular employee, this means this, right? So I could work on that with
Yeah.
Ryan too and present it in front of the commission
And that
to
status
define
is
what that
defined.
is, so it's pretty clear. Is it?
What a full-time regular employee is.
But I
Yeah.
think
In
you
another
need,
part
For
of policy.
purposes of the,
But for purposes of
purpose of
this,
the
yes.
20 hours of PTO.
and I think for this, to prevent the on-call issue that we
Yeah.
have, that needs definitely to be defined.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that's your intent then? And so,
Jeff? More thoughts?
No, after listening to the discussion, I will grudgingly say, okay.
okay.
So
It's
write
not
it
a
up,
hard grudgingly, but it's a grudgingly saying, okay.
'Cause we
write it
do
up,
have-
and then we'll talk, then we can have a vote on it.
Okay, because we do have an employee that just went from part-time to full-time on Monday. And so my understanding is we do want that employee to get the PTO based on this intent.
He'd already been offered it, hadn't he?
Yes, but he's also told that that wasn't like the whole reason why he took the job, right? And he was told it could go the other way.
Okay.
No, and that's a conversation that we need to have some clarifications.
Okay,
Because it wasn't long ago, we had somebody promised more money than what they should have. These salary rate approval forms today, why do we move people to the top of the bracket right off of what the other person was getting paid?
Top of the bracket?
Well, I don't know, I just see the 12% increase.
That doesn't necessarily mean they get moved to the top of the bracket. That could just be a couple grade changes.
And
When we look at those, I can give you.
that
what
needs
those
to be a
scenarios are.
discussion, that we don't promise people monies unless we have conversations. Because honestly, I just don't understand why, if
Well,
we
this
give an
would be-
advancement or we hire somebody, why are they given the full rate that somebody else got?
And
And-
we need to look at that one because I don't think that's the scenario in that.
And it doesn't tell me that by just looking
Right.
at this, but as I look at that and I see a 12% increase, I'm going, well, okay.
I will.
They're on probation for a while in their new job, they shouldn't get the same compensation that somebody that's been at the job for 30 years.
Right. And we well, I couldn't even tell you the last time we hired somebody more than a couple of steps up. and you'll have an exceptional placement letter if that's going to be the case. Normally, a 12% will happen if they move up a couple of, a grade or
Yeah.
two, or
Right,
something like
that should be part of this
I'll do better.
discussion when we have
Which one
this.
is that?
Is,
Uh,
while we're talking about all these other things that are going on, I think it's just part of
Yeah.
the discussion that we need to be talking
I
about.
agree.
And I can try and do a better job of, give me a percentage threshold that you want me to put a note on, and then I can definitely do that.
And on the other hand, we have the deputies out there that they haven't been able to go to post, but they've graduated one session, so they advance some. And that's the way it should happen.
Mhm.
They have to go through 1 year of service and pass post before they're eligible for a step increase.
I'll just let you look at it right here. There's just a couple of them here that, completed introductory period, not post-certified yet, but due to reduction in Idaho, so not out of their
We
own
get that
deal,
sometimes.
but
So they,
Yeah.
but I
Because-
don't think they'll get another step when they pass post then.
No.
well, they'll get a little bit, because I don't think they get the full step,
Yeah, they do.
right there?
We don't do
Okay.
partial.
That's my question is,
Because I understand what's going on with those is they're so limited on staffing that they can't send people to post when they would normally do that. And so they don't want, because it's not the employee's fault,
Right.
that's why they're doing it.
so like Christie just asked the question, is this the same advance that they would have got if they would have graduated at post then?
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a one
Yeah.
step. And this scenario where there was the 12%, he was an equipment operator and moved up. So that's because, the 12% was because of a grade change. And I will make that note on the bottom of it, and then you know that.
Okay, and that,
But you wouldn't know that otherwise. And it's probably because he was all the way over here at the grade he was at.
Mhm.
And so normally it would be a 7% between steps or a 9%, depending on the grades. But because he was so far over to the right, it wasn't a full, like if
Well-
it was 2 steps, it wasn't 14%.
and he went from an hourly employee to a salaried employee.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of things that
Yeah.
happen that,
Yeah, yeah. But let me get clarification from Teresa about the posts. I don't think he'll get, I can't imagine that they would get a step increase again, because that would put that individual higher than other people. They probably just, because it had been a year and they passed all the FTO trainings, they just hadn't gone through post, that's why they probably moved. But let me get clarification on
Okay.
that.
It's usually-
like I say, just,
it's usually
as
the
I go
case.
through these, I get questions and,
Yeah.
Yeah, please ask.
all right. We good then?
I feel like it's clear for me. So
Okay.
Thank you.
One quick comment. I thought we talked one time about we were gonna have official offer letters were to be given to people, which would have their salaries. So people shouldn't be, if that's what we're doing, we should be verbally telling them you're gonna get this or that, right?
The salary rate approval form is it. But,
Didn't we say we were gonna give offer letters to people for jobs?
Conditional offer letters, yes. And that should have the salaries. But it also has language in there that says,
But we
depending
haven't
on
done that
approval
yet.
of We, it's not 100% consistent that people get them. Some do, some don't.
Now, I was told HR sends those out, right?
Usually they're coming from the department now,
Oh.
but with Applicant Pro, we can do it through there, which will be the new way to do it.
I think there's miscommunication about who's doing those, because my understanding was HR was,
No.
and so that's probably why
Okay.
there's inconsistencies.
Yeah,
That's
'cause
probably,
it was-
that's a clarification we need to have a discussion about.
Yeah,
Okay?
because, yeah, it was kind of not being addressed because I wanted to do it through this Applicant Pro now that it's working.
Okay. All right, next on the agenda. On the record, discussion on whether to move forward with the forensic pathology. Comments?
Yeah, I have some comments.
Okay.
So I have some information I want to convey, but first of all, before I get into that, I did want to make a couple of acknowledgements, and I want to acknowledge all the work that Commissioner Huff has put into trying to get these numbers down. Since this came up, we had the big meeting, back in February. I know you put a lot of work into trying to knock these costs down, so that's certainly appreciated. And Commissioner Moser, I also want to acknowledge that you put this meeting, this discussion off and this vote off until I could be back from this conference that I was at in Boise, so I could weigh in on this, and I appreciate that as well. Anyway, I have looked at some of these numbers and things, and I watched the video, so I saw everything that went on there. And so here are my comments about this. Looking at the numbers that you presented, Commissioner Huff, at the meeting I watched on the video, what I'm getting here, and you can correct me if I have this wrong, but I have the forensic lab at 6,000 square feet. Construction cost estimate is 3.5 million. Take away the 1.2 million in equipment costs, and that leaves 2.3 million. 6,000 square feet, so that would be $386 approximately per square foot total. That sounds about right? And then at 7,000 square feet, I calculated $374. At 8,450 square feet, I calculated it's at $362 and some, or approximately. I talked to Mayor Hall down in McCammon and asked, well, what is this costing us, this new ambulance bay? And the cost there, they're estimating 4.2 million for a 12,000 square foot facility, which is about $350 per square foot. So here we're talking about in the little bit more than that, a little bit higher. So the calculations suggest that a building with medical grade interior is about the same cost per square foot as an ambulance bay. And that's a building, half of which is basically a big garage. So I simply do not believe that those numbers are correct. I don't think we can do it at that cost. And then I also spoke with the Ada County coroner about the forensic lab that they're currently building. And they told me the cost per square foot, now it's a 35,000 square foot facility, was going to be $1,100 per square foot. And this does not include outfitting it with furniture, computers, some of the medical equipment, but it did include some medical equipment. So I asked, well, what was the cost without any of the medical equipment per square foot? And they still said it would be about $1,000 per square foot to build that facility. And you would think that with a 35,000 square foot facility, you would have quite significant economies of scale there. So this is another thing that makes me question these numbers, that we can really do it for these numbers. You know, I think I've said before that I think the building of a pathology lab ought to be a state function. I don't think that's something that the counties should get into. Regarding the other county coroners who were here supporting the project, I'd point out we have no contracts. Their support is limited to stating basically if the costs aren't too high, we'd like to not have to drive all the way to Boise. None of them are committed to contribute a penny toward construction costs, is my understanding. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Another troubling concern, or concern, something that troubled me with the discussion at the last meeting, when we were talking about bringing all these counties together, we were talking about the establishment of a regional board. Well, a regional board is what we have with SIF. And we all know how SIF, basically, with the way it's structured, we have other counties dictating our budget, and we vote against that budget every single time, and we're still paying it. There's nothing we can do about it. So that's another concern I have. I'm not going to reiterate the things that I've said previously about, you know, the changes in costs and so on. I don't think we have the knowledge we need to be in such a project. I don't think it's a necessary project when you're talking about last year was 2 autopsies per month. This year, it's going to be about 2.5 autopsies per month. I don't see putting a 3.5 million, and I think that number is going to go up. I don't think it's going to be 3.5. I think it's going to be a lot greater. And so I don't see him putting the money into something for basically getting rid of an inconvenience. And then the final thing I would say is we are going to be giving up other projects that we could do if we took this money and used it elsewhere. And I just want to run through some of the projects. that at some of these, we're gonna have to say no to, or we're gonna end up funding with taxpayer dollars down the line. And that's the sheriff's put in this, I'm talking about these ARPA requests we have. The sheriff has 2.9 million in ARPA requests. The fairgrounds, you could easily put $1 million into fixing that. The ambulance project you put in there, it's $1 million. I know the Veterans Memorial Building, I know it's not in there, but that's probably $500,000 needed to fix that thing. Facilities, Dan Kendall talked about $1 million for planning and zoning roof, historical museum, jury restrooms, etc. Juvenile probation was talking about $230K, road and bridge, another $500K. These projects, to me, are more of a priority than building a forensic pathology lab. And you guys know that I was in South County earlier this year. I was at the fair. I had a booth down there. I was talking to a lot of people, mostly from South County, but some from Pocatello, and asking them what are their concerns, what do they want to see. Nobody's asking for a forensic pathology lab. They're asking for to make sure that they have a way to haul their garbage without having to haul it all the way to Pocatello. So they're concerned about the landfill, they're concerned about the fair, and they're concerned, especially in this area, mainly about property taxes. And I appreciate that you said on the video that you're concerned also about the property taxes. This year, I think we did very well in meeting what the citizens of Bannock County really want, which is primarily lower property taxes. We did that in large part by using the ARPA funds strategically. We have an opportunity to do that again if we don't do this lab. And so I would move that we not go forward with the forensic pathology lab.
Well, I'll just tell you how I feel. I've been involved since we started on this, and I've had a lot of ups and downs, but I believe that and you've talked about this year in budget, but our levy's gone down the last few years. We've worked hard to protect the taxpayers and the taxpayer money, not just this year, but in years past, ever since I've been here. That's been our goal, is the Bannock County taxpayers. ARPA funds could be used for all kinds of things. Everybody, I mean, we had over $18 million worth of projects that people want to have done. But when the funds come in, we talked about what we could do that would make a difference for a long, long time. And I think that this project, after Jeff's worked as hard as he has and he's brought the funds down, that it's a worthwhile project, that it's time for Bannock County to invest in Bannock County. It's time that other companies and businesses and stuff, they need to see us have confidence and faith in ourselves. And that's where I'm at with that. The same with the village. I mean, if we would have held up and wouldn't have moved forward on the village, we wouldn't have that star shining right over here. And the same with the sewer up at the wellness complex. We got a system up there that we were spending $10,000 a year on pumps. Now we've put money into the sewer system. We've got a system that works. We brought the concerts in. We've changed the philosophy, the feelings. We've had meetings earlier today about concerts and how we changed the attitude about Bannock County there. We're going down and we're putting 3 new buildings down. You talk about the fairgrounds down in Downey. We're going to put 3 new buildings down there. We're investing in the county itself and making things better. And still staying in South Bannock County, we're going to put an ambulance in McCammon, which means that we're having better service, better protection. Our citizens are being taken care of. So I would say that my vote would be that we move forward with this project. We need to go forward and we need to get some bids. We need to get some actual numbers and see if we can afford it. Without bids, we're still just guessing. So it's time to move forward, in my opinion. We've sat on this fence and we've gone back and forth for long enough. So that's where I'm at.
Well, there's no question everybody knows where I'm at. And I've continually asked myself over the last year, are we at that point of no return? And am I looking at this with as unbiased an eye as possibly? And I very much respected Jason the other day raising the concerns about the costs. And I get that, but as I sat here this morning, listened to Dan throw some costs out about not a similar structure, but a structure, there was not one question about Dan's qualifications or his thoughts on anything. It was, we accepted what Dan said wholeheartedly. And that was the good faith that I took and presented those construction numbers the other day, was on Dan and Hal and their professional expertise and reputation. So I agree with Commissioner Moser that we should move forward because we don't have solid numbers. And I'm still not unafraid to pull the plug on it if the construction bid numbers come back way outside of where we're talking. If they come back outside, I'm not afraid to say no. Because, again, I told you the other day, when you suggested let's build it bigger, I said, no, here's my number, and if I can't do it for this, I'm not gonna do it. And so that's where I'm staying, that we've gotta do something to have a firm number. It's taken us a year to get where we're 75% there with firm numbers. Now we gotta take that next step, and so, to me, I wanna take the next step, get firm numbers, and if we can build it for what I said, and I don't disagree that those are good, aggressive numbers. I don't disagree. But I just took the best information that I had from people that we trust to go forward with that.
And I talked to Dan also, and he says, going off what you said, he says if those are the numbers, build it bigger, because you'll never get that price again. So I think that as we go forward, we'll see. And as we have our ARPA discussions, there's more conversation on, do we build it bigger? And utilize some of these other things, the other projects, like the sheriff had and some of these other things, to utilize it. Because, like I say, Dan's the expert. He's the one I rely on. So, do you have something to say, Jason?
Nope. I'm concerned about those prices, like I said the other day. But if this is the way we're going to do it, I think we make sure that we do it right and put the coroner up there, give him some space so he has a good office where they can, because it's basically a convenience factor. So let's make it really convenient for him. But I'll be interested to see what the bids are.
So with that, I would vote yes that we move forward.
Well,
Okay.
I have a motion on the table to not do it.
That's the discussion that we're having. And in the form of the motion,
Yep.
would you make your motion?
Yeah, that was my motion, was that we do not continue with the forensic lab.
So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. No. Do we have a second motion?
Well, then the motion would be that we move forward with the project. So I would move that we continue, that we move forward with the project as previously agreed to on 2 separate occasions.
So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay. Now you can have it either way. It's on the record. All right. With that being said, next on the agenda is Resolution 2023-87, designating county road for state reimbursement, and Resolution number 2023-88, certification of 2023 levies.
Mr. Chair, I would move that in regards to Resolution 2023-87 and -88, we approve those resolutions as presented.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Next on the agenda is the memorandum of signature. We actually did this last week, and this was giving Scott the authority to sign for the bills.
When I asked Kelly to bring that down, I told her you guys could just sign it, so maybe Christie didn't realize that, or?
She wanted me to remember
Maybe
when
Kelly
Scott was
thought that.
here, so he could sign it, and I
Oh,
didn't.
got it.
So I didn't do my part.
That's okay, I'll catch him.
Remembering
We're
while he
good.
was here. So, all right. And we'd already voted on that, the memorandum, so. Next, we have the consent agenda. First, we have alcohol licenses, and then we have salary rate approval forms.
Quick clarification on the salary approval forms, they do not get another step when they pass post. They just don't penalize the employee for not being able to post. So I just wanted to make sure that was on the record.
Thank you very much for finding that out. Motion on the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.